as you know, the format for the MESDA Furniture Seminar has always included a combination of the hands-on and the scholarly, usually beginning on Friday afternoon with the hands-on. There's no better person we could have selected to do that this year, particularly moving into a re-examination of coastal furniture, than our first speaker, Mary May, a woman who has broken the glass ceiling in the world of furniture carving, being a member of the Society of American Period Furniture Makers, a frequent person frequently making appearances on television shows like the Woodwright Shop, and somebody who has studied the importance and the technique of 18th century and early 19th century furniture carving throughout the United States, in Great Britain, in Asia, and who brings that perspective to her work, recreating the world of the early furniture carver based in Charleston, South Carolina. So who could better talk to us about early carving in Charleston and how it was physically done than our very first speaker, Mary May.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to come here today. It's really an honor. I just wanted to start with a little story. Sometimes you look back at your life and you sort of wonder how you arrived at where you have arrived. And I was thinking about a story back when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And you know how for Halloween everybody carves pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns and, you know, the traditional triangle eyes and the, you know, sort of semi-toothless grin and all that. Well, me and a couple of my friends were carving pumpkins and getting all slimy and digging out the seeds and everything. And I proceeded to take and scrape off the outside of the skin on the outside and proceeded to make the ears sticking out and the lips sticking out and the nose sticking out, all the things that just were so unnatural to a normal jack-o'-lantern. And my friends were looking at me saying, "You're really strange." And my parents were looking at me saying, "We have a very odd child. She's just not normal." And so there was something back then that was saying, this very strange person sees things, you know, in sort of three-dimension in a different way. And just in addition to that story, that pumpkin was, I was living in Wisconsin at the time, pumpkin was sitting out on our front porch all winter long. In the springtime, I found it again, and it was about a third of the size, all shriveled up, lips still sticking out, ears still sticking out, this little sort of pumpkin, shriveled up pumpkin head. Well, my mom found it 5 years ago. She gave it to me for Christmas. Unfortunately, I can't find it right now. I really wanted to bring it, but it's just, anyway, so you look back at certain things, and you wonder, you know, there was something there of viewing things and seeing things just in that dimensional way from a very young age. When I was in college, I had an opportunity to study over in England as a study abroad, a semester abroad, and I absolutely fell in love with just the wonderful carvings of the cathedrals and the castles, and just as I was going through and watching and looking at these, I thought, I wonder if this is even being done anymore. And at the time, I really didn't think it was. I thought it was one of those things that was only done 200, 300, 500 years ago. And so I sort of, a fleeting fancy of the thought of actually becoming a wood carver sort of went out the window. And so when I got back, I was living in Minneapolis at the time, got back home, and I basically looked in the yellow pages under wood carving because I just wanted to try it. Well, actually, before I did that, I ended up buying a book. I went to a garage sale, bought a book on carving, I bought a chisel and one of those big rubber mallets, and I think I had a rasp, and I took this nasty piece of wood from a junk pile, and I just started hacking away at it, and I did bring that first carving. I bring it with me because you have to start somewhere. And if you take a close look at it, there's gouge marks all over it, and the chisel was about as sharp as a butter knife, and so I just had this really big mallet that I was hitting it as hard as possible, and really you could carve with anything as long as you have a really big mallet. And I don't even know what kind of wood this is. I think somebody said it was hickory, but anyway, I bring that because it's, as I say, we have to start somewhere, and that's kind of a scary thing. And this is one, I don't know if you saw the Woodwright shop where Roy Underhill held this up to him and had the same expression on his face. Looked just like him. Okay, well, after I attempted that, I thought, no, I've got to find a teacher. So I ended up looking in the yellow pages for under wood carving, and found Konstantinos Papadakis, and he is a master carver from Greece, obviously, and he studied back in the 1940s and went through the whole apprenticeship program where the first 2 years you're only sharpening tools, and then you're sweeping the floor and you're doing all that. And then you finally actually get to carve in wood after maybe the second year. And he was basically his master's slave for the next 5 or 6 years. So I'm always looking for apprentices, but nobody seems to be following up on that one. But he ended up coming to the States back in '67, and so I ended up studying with him for about 3 years and really learning the European styles, the real traditional techniques of the European styles. Now, if you've ever been inside a Greek Orthodox church, it's amazing carvings. A lot of times the whole front screen is intricately carved with scrolls and leaves and vines, and it's absolutely beautiful. And that is what he taught me for 3 years. And a little bit of the other traditional European styles, but it was mainly towards that because that was pretty much what the commissions that he took on, or the Greek Orthodox churches. So I had the opportunity to learn the techniques of using these traditional, the long handle gouges and how to sharpen them the traditional way and all that. And after I worked with him for a couple of years, I had the opportunity to go to England and study a little bit more with some other master carvers. I went to the City and Guilds College. I was just really on this, a course to just learn as much as I can from just the traditional, the master carvers, try to glean as much as I could of the traditional ways that carving was done and has been done for centuries. And so I have attempted to stay pretty purist when it comes to that. I still use the hand sharpening and all of that. I enjoy that, and it's been an interesting journey. And I had an opportunity to go to Malaysia and study. So just some opportunities that came along in my life that are just absolutely amazing, really, when I look back on them. I met Norman Landry from the Sapphire Group. He just showed up in my shop one day, and the Sapphire, if you're not familiar with that, the Society of American Period Furniture Makers. He showed up in my shop and spent the afternoon just watching me carve. And from that point on, I got involved with the Sapphire Group, and all of a sudden, there was this connection of period furniture makers and carving. All of a sudden, it was just like this perfect marriage, because they were looking for people, or for how to actually do the details on the carving, or on the period furniture, and that was pretty much what I had been doing. And so it was a perfect sort of melding of that. And then since then, it's just gone in so many different directions of doing a lot of period furniture through that group and through various other ones. So it's really been a very interesting journey.